Guys, how we doing? Sam here. It's a little bit blustering, a little bit rainy, so I hope you can hear me. So today, the Diary of an Entrepreneur, the Journal of an Entrepreneur, episode 2. I've been getting a few questions from people in terms of, Sam, have you always been in property? How long have you been in property? Have you done it for years and years and years and years? And the answer is no. So I thought it'd be useful to maybe share with you how I got into property, how I fell into it, where we are now, what we're doing, and some learnings along the way as I'm getting my steps in as well. So, have I always been in property? No, I've not. If I can take you back, I used to be a physiotherapist. So, to really sort of devalue what I did, I used to rub legs for a living, basically. I worked in professional football, and I joined a business whereby there was 3 of us. It was a startup business, and it went absolutely massive in a short space of time. So when I exited, we had, 400 physiotherapists, multiple hundreds of clinic locations around the UK, 3 head offices in Fareham, Bristol, Solihull, and I was travelling all over the country. So naturally, because you're one of the first in, you get pushed into the management side of things. So apart from a select few patients, I was management. I was head of a department. I had 40 odd staff members and whatnot. I was a bit of a pen pusher, and if I'm honest with you, some of you guys may have been here before. I thought I'd made it. I thought that I was there for life. I thought I was part of the family and the furniture almost. I thought I would never leave that place. And a long story short, essentially what happened, we got taken over by a big legal firm, and they decided to make some changes, and me and my now wife were going away for the weekend to Paris, and we'd gone out for a meal on a Friday night. This was obviously way before COVID, when you could go out for a meal and enjoy yourself, and everyone was buzzing because it was Friday, and I had my work phone with me, and I shouldn't have your work phone with you, should you, when you're on a restaurant? But I did, and it pinged at about 7:30. It was. We're going to Paris the next day, and it was from the head of HR saying we need to have a meeting next week. And long story short, I was being made redundant, and I don't know if anybody can resonate with this who's been made redundant before, or is maybe going through the process of being made redundant, or fears redundancy. It's absolutely horrific. It's literally the rug being pulled from your feet. It's a huge confidence blow, and you go into this spiral of what is wrong with me? Why am I not good enough? I thought I was valued, and ultimately I wasn't valued. I was a number, right? And it got me thinking that, listen, no one's going to save you, and this is even more pertinent right now, that nobody is going to save you. Everybody's job is under jeopardy, is under scrutiny, so you've really got to take control. And it was at that point, this was a couple of years ago now, maybe 3 years ago, that I decided that I would not let anybody dictate my financial future moving forwards, and dictate more so my emotions moving forwards. I wanted to take control of that, and I decided I wanted to create change. Now, I was in a fortunate position within that role to earn pretty good money for what I did, i.e. rubbing legs. So I was able to get an investment property or so I kind of knew a bit about property. But I always loved property, ever since I was little. I remember I used to go on viewings with my dad, just to look around houses, and I used to absolutely love it. But I had this preconceived perception that you had to be rich to be in property. Now I know that's wrong, but I didn't know that at the time. So I decided I wanted to move into property. Now, I'm not this type of person who makes a decision to go into property and doesn't get another job, and I'm just full-time now. I'm not like that. I'm quite risk averse. So I got another job within physiotherapy, less hours, less responsibility, to allow me to start to educate myself more on what I could do within property. Okay, now the education was obviously fantastic to get, because anybody needs education, whether you're a physio, a doctor, you work in a warehouse, you've got to train and educate yourself, right? So that is really, really important. But a lot of the success we've had to date, I would attribute to the action that I took ultimately, because I saw people around me
educating themselves who were already having a level of success. And I thought, well, if they can do it, then I can do it as well. There's no difference between us. We're all following a system, right? It's just the mindset behind that system. So what really happened was it set up almost this self-fulfilling prophecy, almost this triangle of at the top was a level of belief. So I was looking around and seeing other people doing it, and that gave me belief. So I'm about to get run over. That gave me a level of belief, right? And that belief flowed into my action. So I would go out and take loads and loads and loads of action. And naturally, when you go into these situations with a level of belief, probably a confidence that was probably a little bit premature from where I was at, but if you go into something with a level of belief, you're going to get results if you take loads and loads and loads of action. Okay, so then what happened was I got results, which just reinforced my belief, and it set up this sort of self-fulfilling triangle that I would get, or I would have belief, I would take loads of action and get results, and it would just go around like that. So I took loads of action and started to get results. And what happened was the focus was, let's acquire property for ourselves. And we had a couple of properties going through our limited company at the time. We were using some recommended solicitors and brokers. Retrospectively, we didn't do our due diligence on them. They weren't very good. They were very, very slow, to a point whereby both of the properties that we had going through fell through. But before that point, I was getting myself out there, speaking to people, telling people what we were doing, and people started saying, Sam, that sounds great, I like you guys, can you get me one? So we started this process whereby we started finding properties for people bespokely. What were they looking for? Then we got to a point whereby, because they were geographically spread or they were abroad, we maybe started doing some refurbs for people, started recommending letting agents for people, and before you know it, we had this what evolved into this end-to-end service, which is now a bespoke investment service. So we work with a selected handful of people, and we help them grow a portfolio and ultimately grow their wealth. All right, and things I learned from this, stuff I learned from when I was in physiotherapy, obviously working in professional football, working in healthcare, meeting with execs and CEOs and whatnot. And another perception of mine, which I think a lot of us have, is that to be the best, you've got to be the most knowledgeable or the most experienced. And it's not true at all. The best people in sport, in business, and then in property now are not always the most knowledgeable, but they do have one thing in common. They're always one of the best communicators. So they can communicate exceptionally well, no matter who they're speaking to, and communicate a message with a level of passion, enthusiasm, and certainty when they need to. So I think it's really, really important that we understand that it's not always the most knowledgeable and the most experienced people that are top of the tree. It's other things, maybe soft skills that are intangible, that are so important, that it's very rare that people work on. Okay, obviously when I transitioned into property, I had an idea of what I wanted to invest in, and I almost had a model of what an investment was for me. And one of the mistakes that I made was I made the assumption, again looking retrospectively, that I placed my definition of a good investment or a property deal on everybody else as well. So we went for a period of securing these property investments and then not being able to match them up with an investor, right? And then it sort of dawned on me, and it sounds kind of simple now, that everybody's got a different definition of what a property investment or a deal is to them, in the same way that everybody has a different definition of the words that they use. So just to give you an example, if I say that person is rich, you might disagree or agree, because we might have different definitions of what rich means to us, right? We have different definitions of what a property investment is. So again, it boils down, it falls back on communication. You have to have the ability to positively challenge people to understand exactly what they mean by the words they use. This is especially when you get into working with
seasoned and professional property investors, because they will use lots of jargon terms, which is fine, but you really need to understand what is their definition behind these jargon terms that they use. And if that is associated with finances and figures and numbers, well, how do they calculate them finances and figures and numbers? Because again, not only do people have different definitions of the words that they use, they also have different ways of calculating the numbers that they get to. So you need to ensure that everybody's on the same page. And it all boils down to, again, that communication and how you can positively challenge people to understand exactly what they mean by the words that they use, right? Secondly, what I understood and what I learnt was that so many people wait for the perfect opportunity. And there is no such thing as perfect, in my opinion. They wait for that one opportunity. Now listen, you're not going to time the market, but because people are so focused on waiting for this perfect opportunity, they almost have blinkers on and they miss all the great opportunities that are available to them. So you have to have a set criteria in mind of what you're working towards within property. And if something comes up that hits that and it's realistic, you've got to pull the trigger, you've got to take action, you've got to go for it. I spoke to an investor yesterday who has been waiting for the perfect deal for 2 years. 2 years and he's still waiting. He's been telling me for the last 2 years that the property market's going to crash. He's waiting for the crash, and it's been 2 years. We've had Brexit, we've had this political turmoil, we've had COVID, we've had so many things that have happened, and we are still waiting for this property market. Excuse me, it's really windy. Hi Ben. Let me see if I can get under cover. Better. We're still waiting for the property market to take a turn, and it's just not happening at the moment, guys. So in that time, he's missed out on multiple figures of returns on his money just because he's waiting for this perfect opportunity that probably doesn't exist, right? So the lesson and the message is that you've got to pull the trigger, you've got to take action. He's been missing out for years on returns, right? So stop waiting for perfect, stop being unrealistic, realign your expectations with the marketplace, and start taking action, right? So I've kind of been put off my train of thought because of the wind and the rain that's in my face, but that was kind of my transition into property. It's not always been like that. I've been through hard times, all right? And if there's anybody on here going through hard times now, they're being made redundant, they're fearing being made redundant, you know, all things aside, my inbox is always open. If you want to have a chat, you just want to talk about it, you want to tell me how you're feeling, you want to see if I've got any tips or advice to give to you, absolutely, I'm open to have a conversation and chat to people and see where I can help. Because it's a tough time for everybody, right? But when there are tough times, there's always opportunity. So it's just on your perception of what's going on. You need to have a perception and look at things in a certain way and look to see the opportunities. That's really, really important. So, hope this was useful, guys. Any questions you've got, please drop me a message, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.